Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The Delta State government has debunked reports credited to Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike that it had collected refunds from the federal government without disclosing it to citizens, saying it only received 14.7 billion naira. Wike had, during the inauguration of the Port Harcourt campus of the Nigerian Law School last Friday, said President Muhammadu Buhari had approved and paid the arrears of 13% derivation to Rivers, Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, and Akwa Ibom states. The governor said President Buhari's gesture was the major source of revenue for his projects, including the flyovers, the law school, and the cancer center. But the Delta State Commissioner for Finance, Chief Fidelis Tilije, said contrary to the revelation by Wike, Delta State only received 14.7 billion naira in 3 quarterly installments of 4.9 billion naira each. Joining us on the show this morning to further clarify the 13% derivation fund and what the Delta State government has gotten so far is Fidelis Tilije, Delta State Commissioner for Finance. Welcome to the morning show.
Thank you very much. Good morning and happy being here. Well done and thank you very much, viewers.
Okay, Chief Tilije, what is the problem? The governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, said that the federal government has paid the arrears of 13% derivation and that he had used the money in his own state to provide infrastructure and that other states also collected the arrears. Akwa Ibom, Edo State, Delta State, Rivers State, Bayelsa State. But you have been quoted as saying, we didn't collect arrears, but we collected 14.9 billion of 4.9 billion each in tranches. So where is the controversy? In Akwa Ibom, some people who call themselves Akwa Ibom professionals have also been saying that Governor Wike, his claims are false and misleading. But nobody has denied that some money came in. He has accounted for his own. So please, can you tell us what the problem is and also tell us what Delta State did with the ones that you have even claimed you received? Because the whole issue is about accountability.
Thank you very much, Ruben. The truth is that Delta State led a coalition of commissioners of finance of all the 9-11 states, oil-producing states, to ensure that certain shortcomings that we were able to detail out were actually reconciled. At the end of that reconciliation, RAMFAC, the Revenue Mobilization Committee, did a verification and then presented at the FAC plenary the totality of the funds that were meant to be refunded to all the oil-producing states. I can tell you, Ruben, that the very last one that we did is 240 billion. That was what is accruing to Delta State. How did we arrive at this particular refund that is happening now? We had a coalition, and like I said earlier on before, had to bring very credible evidences to show that there were funds that were expended by the federal government without taking regards of the 13% Act, the Derivation Act. And therefore, we had sought that those funds that were not deducted when the federal government did those expenses must be recredited back to the oil-producing states. These refunds were due partly to the excess crude that was expended and put away without taking cognizance of the 13%. And secondly, we then moved on to the issue of subsidy. Before now, the federal government through NNPC treated subsidy and priority investments as above the line. When I say below the line, it means that they were treated as cost of production. But when we came in, we said that this is not correct. The subsidy that you are paying out is an expense on the profitability of NNPC. The priority investment, which is geared towards ensuring that the oil frontiers of Nigeria is expanded, that also too you can't do except you have profit. And so we insisted that those 13% must indeed be refunded to the oil producing states. I can tell you that at the end of the day, these particular findings and verification by RAMFAC was presented to FAC plenary. And FAC plenary, in its normal way of justifiably and credibly assessing so many things that comes in like revenue and expenditure by government, saw there was merit in what we did. And then they had to move on to present it to NEC of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So in the real sense of it, I am not too sure where the governor of Rivers State is coming from. But is he now trying to look for a soft landing for himself? Otherwise, ordinarily, what will have happened that is the FAC committee that he should be thanking. It should be the NEC that actually consented to the verifications of evidential resources that were not actually given to the oil producing states that he should be thanking. Now, let me even leave it at that. I had said earlier on that for Delta State, it was 240 billion naira in the particular recent refund that we are witnessing. And out of that 240 billion naira due to Delta State, we have so far received, I repeat, so far received 3/4, because the refund to the oil producing states was meant to be paid back from the federation account in 5 years. So we have only received 3/4. And the 3/4 summed up to 14.7 billion out of the 240 billion. We had gone ahead too to also assess some funding from the commercial bank to the tune of 30 billion. Now, if you ask me what Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa has done with the receipts so far, I will tell you that it is humongous. As we speak, over 14,000 Deltans have been empowered in different skill acquisition programs. Aside that, let me also let Nigerians know, viewers particularly, that Delta State has more than 15 state capitals. Not like in Rivers State, where the capital is just Port Harcourt, and where the population and the expenditure of current administration and successive ones normally would habitate. For Delta, we have Ughelli that can go for a state capital. We have Asaba already as state capital. We have Agbo. We have Warri. We have Saple. We have Kwale. We have Obiaruku. Name it. Over 15 state centers that can be deemed to be qualified to be state capitals. When Okowa regime came into power, we saw a bill on the pension state fund, that is the state pension arrears of over 133 billion naira. Just the verification of those claims brought the justified and evidential pension that we inherited down from 133 billion to about 43 billion naira. As we speak, and as I speak to you now, the pension fund arrears that we are requiring to pay pensioners hovers about 27 billion. You can do that arithmetic yourself from where we met it and from where we brought it. And I can tell you that out of this 14.7 billion naira, which the state received on this particular refund, 5 billion naira has been set aside to payment of state pension, 2.5 billion, and a grant of 2.5 billion to the local government workers' pension board. Because through the responsibility of paying local government pensions, whether local council or primary school teachers, lies squarely on the federal government. But Okowa, in his transparency and making sure that there is harmony among the working class in Delta State, felt that it would be wrong for us to treat state pensioners differently from what we should do to local government areas. Because in any case, they are all Deltans, which is why the grant of 2.5 billion has actually been given to them. Before the receipts of this 14.7 billion, Delta State government was making a grant of 300 million naira to the LGAs to enable them foot their bill and pay some pension arrears. We have increased it through the wish and the good governance of Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa from 300 million naira per month to 500 million naira. There are so many legacy projects in Delta State. If you care to come and do a watch and do a check.
All right, sir.
The state secretariat, which is ultra-modern and the best in Africa, as are judged by even the governor of Rivers State and so many other governors that came in to see it, is there, live, remaining a very serious legacy project of this administration. I can tell you that very shortly, there will be the commissioning of the Leisure and Film Village in Asaba. It is coming with extreme modern, authentic equipment that is normally needed, even in Nollywood in Las Vegas. Let me say this very clearly, that aside that, we have a trunk A road leading from Warri to Ughelli to Zoro, to Kwale, to Gwashiku, and to Asaba. If those who traverse that road will see the improvement that has happened in the very last few months and years, as the case might be. Right. A lot has happened in this administration.
Yes.
That Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa is doing extremely very well to even bring in harmony, peace among all Deltans. All the restiveness in the riverine areas are completely maintained. Peace runs in the blood of Deltans as we speak today. And that was why even Okowa himself had to even go into the riverine areas. We have never seen a situation where you go to Purutu and drive a car. But this administration made it possible to pave all the streets in Purutu to the extent that cars do not apply those roads. There is what we also call the Oheye market.
Yes, sir.
The Oheye market is sitting on the middle of the sea. I will stop that. I'll stop there for the time.
Thank you very much. I'll still like you. I mean, my follow-up question is for you to give a bit more information. So that's why I wanted to interject, so you can answer whilst you're detailing some of the projects that the governor, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, has done in Delta State. I'd like to ask you specifically now. Governor Nyesom Wike, when he was speaking, detailed some of the capital projects he had used the 13% derivative to execute. He talked about the flyover. He talked about the law school. He talked about the cancer center. Beyond the broad projects that the governor has executed, can you speak directly to what the money was used, the 14 billion naira that was given to Delta State was used for, capital projects, how much for each of the projects, if you have that information with you, so that we can see clearly, because you've mentioned transparency a number of times, and you can understand why people would be a bit skeptical, since if not that, Governor Wike and Nyesom Wike talked about this, the Delta State government wasn't transparent with it. So it's building trust again with the people who are asking, why did you keep this quiet? Why are you now speaking about it now that it has been exposed? And what do you do exactly with that money beyond recurrent expenditure? Capital project that we can see, and it can be, like you talked about, legacy projects.
I just mentioned a few of them, and I like to repeat myself here that part of this 14.7 billion naira, 5 billion out of that was transferred for payment of pension arrears in the state. As I speak to you, there is a coca exchange which is nearing completion, and that in fact will be commissioned in the next 1 month or two. The film village and the leisure park that I just mentioned will also be commissioned in few months away. I have also said, and I like to repeat myself, that the expanse of cities in Delta State, they are completely different. Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa is not somebody who comes up to talk on telly. He likes you to watch his actions and interpret it yourself. Let me remind viewers and let them know by information that Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, since incidents of office, has done a quarterly briefing, press quarterly briefing, since he became governor in 2015. In the very last quarterly meeting that was rendered by him personally, he mentioned the fact that there was a refund from the federal government, and that part of that refund that is due to Delta State was 270 billion. Now, I don't even want to confuse us between 270 billion and 240 billion. But let me just quickly say this. It was initially 270 billion. And Imo State, one of the oil producing states, went to court to say that the indices that were applied in arriving at the various payments due to all the states was unfavorable to them. And so, in trying to ensure that the indices were revisited, at the end of the day, again, just because Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa wanted peace, didn't want to continue court process and all that, Luckily, Imo State went back to court and sought for settlement. And in a bid to be our brother's keeper, the large-hearted governor that he is, he allowed 30 billion out of the 270 billion to be put into the pool for the increase of the refunds that are due to some oil states that were not particularly doing well. Now. And so Imo State happened to be part of that. That is why what we now expect from the federal government as refund is 250 billion. And like I said before, the 240 billion is payable in 5 years. And as I speak, only 3/4 of that has been received. But I do not envy the Rivers State government or any other oil producing states who decided to utilize the totality of the funds that is meant due for them. If we were to run the way that Rivers had run, I can tell you that by now, we will have been able to discount the 240 billion naira and we will have received about 220 billion. But as a finance commissioner, I had done my own advice to His Excellency the Governor, and I wanted us to at least discount 50% of the 240 billion that was due to us. But he told me that I know when I came into power in 2015, when people started nicknaming me Eguaria because I was trying to look for resources to fund the state, I do not want my next governor to get into that trap of being unable to pay salaries. And so we needed to be transparent, yes. We needed to be conservative so that at the end of the day, we do not put a boo-boo trap in the next government that is coming. And that's why we're taking it gradually. I repeat myself, out of the 240 billion, we have gotten 14.7 billion directly. And we are just assessing 30 billion, which we are discounting from the 240 billion naira that is due to Deltans. The truth is that the money in Delta has been judiciously utilized. I've also said that as we speak, over 14,000 Deltans have been put into entrepreneurship.
Mr. Tilije, let me come in.
There are so many other projects that we can talk about.
Mr. Tilije,
the Coca exchange is there.
Okay, good to have you. Mr. Tilije, good to have you. Great to talk to you. But let me, go into some things.
Thank you.
Some projects you talked about, like I have been to Asaba, I've seen that movie, what is it called, Village, just on the way when you're going to Akwibu, the road at which you're going to link. I'd seen that place. Those projects were prior to this time. When was the payment made, for the 30% derivation, the areas that you access? Because those projects have been on for quite a while, So I want you to juxtapose that. And when you say 14,000 people have been, given subventions and soft loans, what was the cost to the project of the empowerment program? Because a lot of people say empowerment program in this country is a big scam. The quickest way to siphon funds and steal money is empowerment programs, because you can buy the machines, the sewing machines and things you use to empower them for free, and the hairdressing salon materials, and you discount the cost because of, you have volume and everything. So we want a breakdown, of the empirical cost to all of this, because some projects you cited had been on for some time. Because I just read through your 2021 budget. There's about over 800 pages. Over 800 pages. And you had seen most of those projects coming up, as recurrence there. So let us look at it. And since you say you are leaving money behind, how much is in Delta's purse? What's the debt level of Delta State as we speak now? And how much does Delta State have in the bank? So we have financial appropriation, some level of financial accountability.
Yeah, thank you very well, Rifai. Let me start from the last point that you raised. I have said severally, I am not making a sweeping or general statement, that Delta State is the richest state in this country. Delta State is the most solvent state in this country. I tell you why. The debt profile of Delta State stands at about 270 billion as I speak. This 270 billion naira debt profile is inclusive of so many areas that were initially taken from the central bank, including the central bank bailout and all that has actually been running for so many years. As we speak today, were we to discount the future cash flows of Delta State due to Delta State from refund from the federal government of Nigeria, we will write off and clean up our books completely. The point I'm making is if we carry a total debt profile of about 270 billion, and we have receivables which are not fact receipts, they are refunds from federal government, that alone is more than 270 billion as we speak in terms of refunds that we're expecting. Don't ask me what is the difference between the 240 billion and the 272. There were also some other refunds that were ongoing before this particular one came in. And so that's why I'm saying that if we were to discount the total process of refunds alone, we will write off all the debts of Delta State without taking cognizance of the fact receipts, which comes in on a monthly basis, without taking cognizance and consideration of the IGR of Delta State. We can clean up our debt profile just like Obasanjo did. We can do that and we can still swim and move on well, still pay our salaries and do the best that we are doing now. Yes, I agree with you that some of these projects have been ongoing before the receipts were done. I had said earlier on that we as Delta State and indeed all other oil producing states have received 3 quarters. And the first payment was done in January. And then successively, we have gotten 3 quarters. And then I have also said, and let me repeat myself, in addition to what I said earlier on in the press briefing center, that this first year, Delta State is receiving 4.9 billion naira quarterly. In the second year, after the first quarters, it will increase to 12.9 billion on a quarterly basis for the next 4 years. And so if you do the arithmetic, 12.9 times 4, and then times 4 years, you know what the figures will be like, which is why I said that Delta State is very solvent. Okay. Yes, these projects have been ongoing. The pension that we just released now, 5 billion naira, is part of the 14.7 billion that we're talking about now.
Okay, Mr.
We have also made sure that because we want to commission the Coca Bridge Exchange and the interchange, and then because we want to commission the Film and Leisure Park, we have also made substantial payment to them such that they have enough money to run and then ensure that these 2 projects are commissioned very shortly.
Okay, Mr. Tilije, real quickly. I think you should check the DMO's records. The DMO was talking about your debt skyrocketing from 163 billion to 378 billion. And this represents 100% increase from March to June this year. Or has there more payments been done? I mean, that was as at a newspaper report on the 3rd of October 2022.
Yeah, Rufai, I think the timing has an issue here. I can tell you that the data will have been quoted in that particular report that you are reading will have been past events.
Yes, 3rd October.
As I speak to you now, the debt profile of Delta State is 272 billion. And that's exactly what is in DMO.
Chief Tilije.
So if they had 387 before, obviously government is a dynamic program. As we run on a monthly, daily basis, we are paying down contractors. And I can tell you that as I speak, out of that debt profile of Delta State, contractors' obligation is about 84 billion. If I tell you the figure we met when we came in 2015, you will marvel. But I can tell you that so much repayments have been made to contractors. That's why I think if we do a credit rating of Delta State today, in comparison with any other state, Delta State is, I repeat, and I want to be put on a debatable table on this issue, most solvent state.
Chief Tilije, if you can hear me, for the purpose of this interview, all those details,
I can hear you, Ruben.
Yeah, all those details can be fact-checked by other stakeholders, because I guess there are other stakeholders who are, interested in this. It's not just about throwing up figures. But I want to ask you, the arrears paid by the federal government was on the basis of a court judgment. The court ruling said the federal government should pay the arrears in 60 quarterly, monthly installments. This is from the response from the Akwa Ibom professionals stating that. And they said what the federal government has done is 10 quarterly installments that the federal government still has to pay up to 50. I guess what Nyesom Wike of Rivers State was pointing out was saying that, look, the federal government has paid some arrears. This is what I have done with my own. Other state governments are not talking about the money they received. And when he raised when he blew the whistle, you suddenly found Delta State coming forward. You found Akwa Ibom professionals coming forward to say this is what we have done, including adding old projects to the list. So, and that was why I asked you initially that what is it that Wike has done that is wrong? He simply blew the whistle. And now you came on television, you are saying this is what we have done with our own. Do you really think that Governor Wike deserves blame for blowing the whistle on his own colleagues? That's the first part of it. You talked about discount, money meant for this data state being discounted, you know, and all that. Okay, who made those discounts? Who did? Can you identify who did? And at what rate was the discount made? Because you should know, since it's money due to Delta State.
Ruben, let me start from the last again. I said clearly, Ruben, that we did not avail ourselves in Delta State the opportunity of discounting the process that we are expecting in 5 years. I do know that some other oil producing states had gone ahead to discount totally the receipts. And let me also correct you, Ruben. The payment is for 60 months, 5 years, and quarterly, not 60 quarterly. Quarterly payments for 5 years.
I said 60
so what we would have done
monthly.
Ordinarily.
That was the phrase I used.
3 quarterly.
I said 60
okay, fine. Three
monthly
payments.
installments. That's what the court said.
No, okay, I thought I heard you say 60 quarterly.
No, I said 60
payments.
equal monthly
okay, that's fine.
installments.
Now, that is the truth. Now, nobody is blaming Wike. He has not even blown any whistle. I had said before, during this interview, that Senator Dr. Fanyokoa had done a press conference 3 months ago as part of his quarterly brief of the state and the nation. I've also said that this payment refunds that we're talking about is not a judgmental payment. It is not a payment from court. It is a payment that was verified by the 9 commissioners of finance from the oil producing states through RAMFAC, and RAMFAC presented to plenary. It is not a court judgment refund. It is actually not the federal government that is paying. It is the totality of the federation, which means the federal government, the state government, and the local government councils are paying. It's not federal government. Federal government is just an arm of the federation. But the problem that we have always had, which I think is throwing up this troubleshooting now, is the fact that that payment is not being made by the federal government in the first instance. And that even Wike blew the whistle now. It's even too late to have blown the whistle, because the first receipt of this particular refund happened in January. So why was it in January? And I repeat myself, it is not the approval of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that caused this refund. It was a refund that was debated, agreed, and resolved at FEC plenary. And then thereafter, it went to NEC for consent. So the money that is being deducted now as refund to the oil producing states is the money meant for Nigeria, which is the federal government, the state government, and local government councils. I had said earlier on that we had brought to bear the fact that they were making expenditure, sharing money in the federation account without taking cognizance of the 30% Derivation Act. And so we insisted that that must happen now. And let me tell you, there will be many more refunds that will come, because we're already very close there. All the funds that we're talking about now are not funds that are due to the oil producing states this year. Some of them are funds due to the oil producing states since 2010. Some of them. And so what we are doing now is taking a backlog and listening very well. They say when the economy gets tougher, you obviously have to begin to look for ways and manners to recover what you think is lost before. And that's what we are doing, and we'll continue to do so. And the issue of blowing whistle doesn't come in at all. I don't know what he wanted Buhari to do for him. I do not know. But I'm saying that that approval was not done by Buhari. It was done by FAC, consented to by NEC. And sometimes when these things happen, it is always better for you to be quiet so that you can seamlessly ensure that all the refunds are paid. What we have done now by this whistleblowing is to give opportunities for people who maybe want to truncate the progress and development in Delta State to begin to seek other redress, when we do know that these funds are clear, verifiable, evidential, and they are there, genuine debts that must be refunded. So that is the truth. And like I said before, there are so many projects in Delta State that you need to come and look at. It is clear. The 14.7, let me also tell viewers, and particularly you, Ruben, that you are aware that we had gone to the House of Assembly sometime 6 months ago when we wanted to discount part of the 240. And we wanted to discount and take 150 billion out of it. And then the press went haywire. Some Deltans went to court, the opposition party. Oh, what are they going to do with 150 billion? They want to overborrow and all that. And so we decided, because it was during the primaries in Delta State and of course across the board, to ensure that we step down a little bit, do a further review. And then we did a review and we came down to 100 billion, which we are now trying to do from the market, out of which we have taken 30 billion. Let me state categorically that when we forwarded the bill, the consent to House of Assembly, we had tabulated specifically the projects that we will be funding from the receipts of this refund. And they are there in the public domain. Anybody who wants to look at, clearly can look at it. They are in the public domain. So, to the best of my knowledge and ability, Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa has done so well. It is not easy to govern Delta State, where we have so many ethnic nationalities, so many interests, so many restiveness. The fact that we have peace in Delta State comes with a cost. But then, he has been able to carry along the traditional institution, the Christian community, the youths, the women. And that's why I talked about several empowerment programs. Just like Rufai said, I agree with you that empowerment programs can be areas and programs where people will siphon funds. In Delta State, it is difficult for you to do so. Why will it be difficult for you to do so? Because we started initially from what we call the job creation programs. And then we thought that we needed to rejig it. And so today we have different ministries, 5 of them, that are doing empowerment. We also have a full-blown ministry, which is called Ministry of Evaluation and Monitoring. Aside that, we also have a department for monitoring and report. So on a monthly basis, the reports are taken and presented to council, council debates, and where we find out there are certain issues, challenges that we need to overcome, we quickly try to rejig. A lot has been done in Delta State to maintain peace and to ensure that when Okowa first came in, let me say this clearly, these revenues we're talking about does not come by sleeping. Peace was the first one. And then today, as we speak, Delta State is on record. It's the largest oil producing state in this country. It was number 4 when Okowa came in. Today is number 1. It is a feat. And we know that all oil producing states might be saying, oh, Delta is taking a large chunk of that. But come to Delta, come and view, come and see, come and question. We will answer you with credible evidence, with credible projects that you can see, and things that are sustaining, which are serious legacies. I'm not going to begin to tell you how many thousands of kilometers that Senator Ifeanyi Okowa has started in Delta State in this few period of existence. We will leave that for another day. But the clarity of the matter is what I've spoken.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, talking about legacy, what percentage of the 14.7 billion was disbursed to the Delta State oil producing areas under the commission?
Now, what normally happens is a specific percentage by law.
Yes.
That goes to the oil producing states.
50%, yes.
And that we have made sure, since Okowa came in, is in standing and in good records. Remember too, that while we were talking about this 14.7, flood came rampaging. And a lot of money was also spent in that. As the people who were in the camps.
Can you be a bit more specific? Because there have been agitations from groups.
How specific do you want me to be?
There have been agitations from groups who have even asked the federal government to halt the 13% payment if these oil-producing areas don't get their share of the allocation. So it'd be great for you to highlight what specifically has gone towards those areas, since you have, highlighted many of the projects that Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa has done with the 14.7 billion naira. Can you speak to that? Can you give some specifics around that?
Yeah, Ayo, yes, I can. And I just mentioned it in passing already. There is a particular act which created the Sompadec.
Yes.
The Sompadec is the agency that takes care of all oil-producing states in Delta State. And I've said that act has been met, and any fund that is due to them has been given to them. And I think that it is being utilized very judiciously. And I can tell you that we have men who are credible, who are running the Sompadec. And Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa himself goes off his way to request for quarterly presentations from the Sompadec, who is in charge of oil-producing states. Which is why I told you that today we can ply cars in Burutu. It never happened before. Today we are building a market inside the sea after ex-travels. It has never happened before. I don't want to begin to tell the number of bridges that this administration has built. That's why I said, come to Delta, watch Smart Delta, and see what is happening in Delta Okowa's governance in Delta State. The figures are clear. Very, very clear.
Okay. You say the figures are clear. A lot of people are challenging you on that, and they are saying, what Warri and other cities are you talking about? That Warri has become a den for Yahoo boys because of unemployment. Things have become in a deplorable state. And they're asking that why is that since 2016, 100 workers of Delta State Labor Direct Agency, DLA, are still being owed about 30 months' salary by Governor Okowa till date. Many of the workers are facing starvation and all of that. The amount needed to pay the workers is just a paltry sum of 150 million naira, but it's not being paid. So they are kicking back by saying, all the things you're saying about Warri and Ughelli and the likes, we've seen no real development in those areas, as such. The roads are in a deplorable state and all of that. So what has been done? They said nothing has been done in those areas. In fact, the argument is that most of the development was focused on the Asaba area and, Delta North. What is happening?
Rufai, that is not true at all. The Delta State government is not owing any employee 1 naira. As I speak to you today, alerts will be received today by all the employers of Delta State.
DLA workers, you've paid all of them?
Payments.
You've paid all the DLA workers?
No DLA worker that is owed. There is no DLA worker that is owed, to the best of my knowledge. None. I just told you that Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, because of fairness, also give grants to local government to enable them pay salaries. Let me also let you know that the monthly salary bill of Delta State hovers about 9 billion naira. We had to bring it down to that level because it was twice that when we came in. So the salary bill alone is 9 billion. Go out and find out. Should we have decided to sack all the people that we met, like happened in Kaduna? We wouldn't do that because this governance has a human face. The best that we have to do is to make sure that we carry on and also monthly basis review the salary content in terms of the number of salaries employees that are paid, and then weeding out those people who are not supposed to be in the payroll. That was exactly what has happened. That's why it came to what it is today. But remember too that Delta State was one of the very first states in this country that implemented the minimum wage. And as we speak today, there is no employee in Delta State that is earning less than minimum wage. I didn't want to bore you, Rufai, about Warri, about Ughelli. I took you to the river right areas. Warri and Ughelli, as we speak, there's a drainage that is ongoing in Warri that is costing this state government series of billions of naira. So many roads have been paved. Wow. If you see any bad road in Delta State today, it is the trunk A roads meant to be sustained and maintained by the federal government of Nigeria.
Okay,
which is why some of us don't believe that there should be Ministry of Works in Abuja.
Chief Tilije, if you are with us,
Yeah,
before
yes,
we go. Again, when you talk about roads, the people in Delta State, they can, test it with the evidence of their eyes. But very quickly, before we go, what's the reaction of the Delta State government to the nomination of Loretta Onochie from Anioma local government area, the Anioma side of the state, as chairman of the NDDC, or if you like, proposed chairman of the NDDC? Briefly.
Well, Ruben, you are throwing me into the gallery, but let me say clearly that Loretta Onochie is not from any oil producing area of Delta State. And therefore, following the act, it is impossible. It will be tested. She cannot be and she should not be. If Buhari insists on making sure, using the federal might, to insist that Loretta should be, I'm sure there will be court process that will go. It is clear that Aniocha, where she's from, there is no single oil well in that local government. And therefore, the act is clear. You can only be chairman MD if you are from an oil producing community in the areas that form the oil producing states. So clearly, that is a technical view. Whatever politics we do under it, I am not cut out for that. That's why we say sometimes, we are not priding ourselves, but we are technocrats in politics.
But is she from Delta State? And is Delta State oil producing? Must there be an oil well in a village before she can qualify as a Delta State representative? Is that what the law says?
I just told you what the act said, Ruben. It's not me. I'm not the proponent of the act. The act is clear.
The act does not say there must be oil in your village.
Oil producing community. You say what?
No, but the act does not say there must be an oil well in your village. The oil well does not say, the act does not say
community. It says community.
Okay, and Aniocha...
That's why we have host communities. Aniocha is not part of host communities in Delta State. We have host community. And the host community is also clearly defined. Even in the PIA Act, it's defined.
Okay.
It's not a host community.
Okay.
So if you are not a host community, I am not talking about the vigorous of oil production across the length and breadth of diameters that will form the sum of negative impact along the line. But in truth, she is not from an oil producing local government and not from oil producing community.
Okay.
And if the act so says that you cannot qualify to be, let us begin to respect the rule of law.
So she does not have the support of the Delta State government.
Brigandry.
So she does not have the support of the Delta State government to take that position.
Of course, she's an APC card carrying member, and the government of Delta State is the government of all Deltans, but governed by PDP as we speak. We will not support that. I have not discussed with my governor, but I'm talking now as a personal individual who is from an oil producing community, who knows the impact of oil production in my community. It is suicidal to do what they are doing now. And I think it's very wrong.
Okay.
And I do not want any federal government to begin to stir up the militancy in the oil producing areas again. We have tried to maintain peace. Federal government should not come and jeopardize all the cost and the time, the courage it has taken these oil producing state governors to maintain peace so far. I think we need to recoil a little bit and do what is right, and make sure that law and order thrives in this country.
Okay, thank you very much, Fidelis Tilije, for joining us on the Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.